The first Kithrin scout ship appeared over Earth's moon on a Tuesday morning, its sleek hull reflecting sunlight like polished obsidian. Within hours, every military installation on the planet was tracking the vessel as it performed lazy orbits around humanity's celestial companion. Apparently studying the blue world below with casual interest, Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the Pentagon's Situation Room, her weathered hands gripping the edge of the holographic display table. The alien ship dominated the projection, its smooth curves and impossible angles defying everything humanity knew about aerospace engineering. No visible engines, no exhaust signatures, no heat bloom from propulsion systems. It simply existed in space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. What are our options? President Martinez asked, his voice tight with controlled tension. General Morrison, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, cleared his throat. We've positioned our most advanced fighters in low Earth orbit. The X-47 Phantoms are armed with our latest plasma missiles and kinetic penetrators. If this thing shows hostile intent, we can respond within minutes. Chun studied the alien craft through narrowed eyes. 30 years of military service had taught her to read situations, to spot weaknesses and opportunities. But this vessel revealed nothing. No weapons ports, no defensive systems, no obvious vulnerabilities. It was like trying to analyze a mirror. The communication came without warning. Every radio frequency on Earth suddenly carried the same signal, a voice speaking perfect English with an accent that seemed to mock human pronunciation. Greetings, inhabitants of the third planetary body. I am Commander Vextai of the Kithrin Empire. Your world has been selected for evaluation and potential integration into our domain. The president leaned forward. Integration? The alien voice continued as if it had heard the question. We have observed your species for some time. Your technological development shows promise. Though your military capabilities are ... quaint, we appreciate primitive cultures that still rely on chemical propulsion and metal projectiles. How wonderfully nostalgic. General Morrison's face darkened. Primitive? Our plasma weaponry can cut through 3 meters of reinforced titanium. A sound came through the speakers that might have been laughter. Yes, we detected your plasma weapons during our initial scans. The energy output is barely sufficient to warm our hull plating. Your kinetic weapons fire solid metal at speeds that would have impressed our ancestors several millennia ago. Tell me, do you still use gunpowder as well? Admiral Chen felt heat rise in her chest. She'd dedicated her life to perfecting humanity's military technology, pushing the boundaries of what was possible with Earth's resources and scientific understanding. To have it dismissed so casually felt like a personal insult. Our nuclear arsenal could sterilize this planet, she said, knowing the alien could somehow hear them. Nuclear fission? How delightfully retro. We stopped using such crude energy sources when we discovered how to manipulate matter at the quantum level. Your most powerful atomic weapons would struggle to penetrate our basic shielding. The holographic display updated as new contacts appeared on the screen. 12 more ships materialized around the moon, each identical to the first. They hadn't arrived, they had simply become visible, as if they'd been there all along, cloaked by technology beyond human comprehension. We offer you a choice, Commander Vextai continued. Submit to Kithrin authority willingly, and your species will be preserved as a curiosity, a living museum of primitive warfare. Your soldiers may even serve as entertaining displays of ancient combat techniques for our younglings to study. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why your weapons are artifacts rather than threats. President Martinez straightened. And if we choose to fight? Then you will provide us with a brief demonstration of how wars were fought in the galaxy's distant past. We are always interested in historical reenactments, though I warn you, the performance will be short-lived. The connection ended, leaving the Situation Room in stunned silence. Chin stared at the display, watching the 13 alien vessels maintain their perfect formation around Earth's moon. Each ship was roughly the size of a football stadium, their dark hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Arrogant bastards, Morrison muttered. They want to see our capabilities? Let's show them what human ingenuity looks like. Over the following week, Earth's military forces prepared for a conflict unlike anything in human history. The Kithran ships remained at their positions around the moon, occasionally broadcasting messages that contained detailed analyses of humanity's defensive preparations. They described weapon placements, troop movements, and strategic plans with casual precision, as if reading from a children's book. Your orbital defense platforms show interesting design principles, one broadcast noted. The use of chemical rockets for positioning is charmingly inefficient. We particularly enjoy watching your pilots struggle with the limitations of primitive inertial dampening systems. Admiral Chun found herself working 80-hour days, coordinating with military leaders from every major nation. The alien threat had united Earth's governments in a way that decades of diplomacy had failed to achieve. Old rivalries were set aside as humanity, prepared to face extinction as a species. The first test came when the aliens decided to examine Earth's defenses more closely. A single Kithran ship broke formation and began a leisurely descent toward the planet's atmosphere. It moved without urgency, as if confident that nothing could threaten it. Chun watched from the command center as humanity's best pilots scrambled to intercept. The X-47 Phantoms were marvels of human engineering, fusion-powered fighters capable of reaching significant fractions of light speed in short bursts. Their weapon systems represented the pinnacle of terrestrial military technology. The lead pilot, Commander Jake Rodriguez, had spent years training for this moment. His fighter streaked toward the alien vessel, weapon systems charging, targeting computers calculating optimal firing solutions. The Kithran ship made no effort to evade or defend itself. Target acquired, Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm system, firing plasma batteries. Brilliant streams of superheated matter lanced across space, each bolt carrying enough energy to vaporize a city block. The plasma struck the alien hull and simply dissipated, absorbed without leaving so much as a scorch mark. The Kithran vessel continued its descent as if nothing had happened. Switching to kinetic penetrators, Rodriguez reported, his voice betraying the first hint of concern. The Railgun launched. Tungsten rods screamed toward their target at incredible velocity. These weapons had been tested against every known material, capable of punching through battleship armor like paper. They struck the alien hull and disintegrated on contact, their kinetic energy somehow neutralized or redirected. All weapons ineffective, Rodriguez transmitted. The target isn't even acknowledging our presence? Commander Vextai's voice filled the comm channel, tinged with what sounded like gentle amusement. Commander Rodriguez, your weapon systems are impressive for their technological era. The plasma temperature reached nearly 4 million degrees, quite hot by primitive standards. Your kinetic projectiles achieved remarkable velocity for chemical propulsion systems. We commend your species on maximizing such limited resources. The alien ship passed through Earth's atmosphere without slowing, its hull showing no sign of heating from atmospheric friction. It settled into a stationary position 3 kilometers above downtown New York, casting a shadow over Manhattan's skyscrapers. We will now demonstrate the difference between ancient and modern warfare. Vextai announced. A section of the alien hull became transparent, revealing what appeared to be a weapon system. But instead of the mechanical components humans expected, they saw something that defied explanation. A swirling vortex of energy that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The weapon discharged once. The Hudson River simply vanished for a 10-kilometer stretch. The water molecules disassembled at the atomic level and converted to harmless vapor. The riverbed remained untouched, as did the surrounding buildings. It was a demonstration of precision that left humanity stunned. Your turn, the alien commander said pleasantly. Chun watched her life's work crumble before her eyes. Every weapon system, every strategic doctrine, every military innovation that had seemed so advanced just hours ago now looked like Stone Age tools compared to what the Kithrans possessed. The plasma weapons that could cut through anything Earth made couldn't even warm their hull. The kinetic penetrators that could pierce any terrestrial armor simply disintegrated on contact. But as the alien ship hovered over New York, broadcasting additional demonstrations of their technological superiority, Chun noticed something. The Kithrans were thorough in their analysis, cataloging every human weapon system they encountered. They had detailed files on plasma technology, fusion weapons, chemical explosives, and kinetic systems, yet their broadcasts focused entirely on what they had observed. They spoke of humanity's military capabilities as if they had a complete understanding, based solely on current deployments and recent conflicts. They were studying humanity like archaeologists examining artifacts, making assumptions about technological development based on what they could see. Admiral Chun pulled up classified fill. Deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Dr. Elizabeth Hawkins ran her fingers along the smooth metal surface of humanity's most closely guarded secret. The electromagnetic mass driver stretched for nearly 2 kilometers through the mountain's core, its superconducting coils hidden from orbital observation by 300 meters of solid granite. Final power checks complete, her assistant, Dr. Marcus Webb, reported from the control station. All capacitor banks are at full charge. The targeting system has a clean lock on the Leov-Hithuran vessel. Hawkins nodded, her mind racing through 20 years of theoretical physics and engineering challenges. Project Thunderstrike had begun as a thought experiment. What would happen if humanity could bypass the limitations of chemical propulsion entirely? The answer lay in the massive apparatus before her, a railgun capable of accelerating projectiles to 30% of LIGHTSPED.MRL. Joan's voice crackled through the secure communication link. Dr. Hawkins, we need to know if this thing will work. The Kithrans have given us 6 hours to surrender, or they'll begin what they call cultural preservation through elimination. The physics are solid, Hawkins replied, checking her calculations one final time. The projectile will carry the kinetic energy equivalent of a small asteroid impact. Even if their shields can absorb or deflect plasma in conventional kinetics, the sheer energy transfer should overwhelm any defense system. The railgun represented everything the Kithrans had failed to understand about human innovation. While they had catalogued humanity's visible weapons with dismissive amusement, they had missed the fundamental nature of human problem-solving. Humans didn't just improve existing technology, they reimagined the basic principles of warfare itself. The projectile sat in the loading chamber, a tungsten osmium alloy slug the size of a telephone pole. Unlike conventional ammunition, it carried no explosive warhead, no complex guidance systems, no technological vulnerabilities that alien sensors might detect. It was simply mass, accelerated to unimaginable velocity by electromagnetic fields that could bend spacetime itself. "Dr. Hawkins," came another voice on the comm. President Martinez. "Are you absolutely certain this won't be detected until it's too late?" Hawkins smiled grimly. "Mr. President, the Kithrans have based their entire assessment of our capabilities on energy, signatures, and technological patterns they recognize. This weapon operates on principles they've apparently forgotten existed. By the time their sensors detect the projectile, it will already have reached its target." Above them, the alien ships continued their casual dominance of Earth's orbital space. Commander Vextai had spent the morning broadcasting detailed critiques of human military strategy, pointing out the inefficiencies of spreading defensive assets across multiple installations. "Your species shows admirable determination," the alien commander had noted. "We observe continued movement of military assets despite the obvious futility. This persistence in the face of certain defeat is a quaint characteristic we will preserve in our cultural archives." The Kithrans had also begun what they called demonstration protocols. Every few hours, one of their ships would casually eliminate a military target, using weapons that defied human understanding of physics. They vaporized aircraft carriers with beams of twisted space, turned main battle tanks into constituent atoms with fields of organized antimatter, and redirected ballistic missiles back at their launch points through localized gravity manipulation. Each demonstration was accompanied by educational commentary about the primitive nature of human warfare. The aliens seemed genuinely entertained by humanity's struggles, treating Earth's military responses as a living exhibit of ancient combat techniques. But the Kithrans had made a critical assumption about technological development. They believed that any species advanced enough to threaten them would follow predictable patterns of scientific evolution. Plasma weapons, antimatter containment, quantum field manipulation. These were the logical steps that rational civilizations took as they advanced through the technological hierarchy. They had never encountered a species desperate enough to skip several evolutionary steps entirely. Targeting. Solution confirmed, Webb announced. The lead vessel maintains a stationary position directly above the International Space Station. Range, 400,000 kilometers. Hawkins felt her heart pounding as she reviewed the final calculations. The railgun would accelerate its projectile through a precisely controlled electromagnetic field, building velocity as it traveled the weapon's 2-kilometer length. By the time the slug reached the muzzle, it would be moving fast enough to cross the distance to the alien ship in less than 4 seconds. Admiral Chun. "We're ready for authorization," she reported. Chun's voice came through with barely controlled tension. "Dr. Hawkins, you're authorized to fire. Show these bastards what human ingenuity looks like when we stop playing by their rules." Hawkins placed her palm on the biometric scanner. Firing sequence initiated. The mountain trembled as power flowed through the railgun's superconducting coils. Every light in the facility dimmed as the weapon drew energy from 3 nuclear reactors simultaneously. The electromagnetic fields built to levels that would have been visible from orbit, if not for the mountain's shielding dot in space. Commander Vextai was conducting another educational broadcast about primitive military tactics when his ship's sensors registered an anomaly. The detection came from Earth's North American continent, but the energy signature made no sense according to Kithran understanding of human technology. "Curious," he transmitted to his fleet. "The primitives appear to be conducting some form of electromagnetic experiment. The power levels are surprisingly high for their technological base, though still far below anything that could threaten our vessels." The tungsten osmium projectile emerged from the mountain at 30% of light speed, its passage invisible to human eyes but screaming across every electromagnetic spectrum. The slug had been engineered for maximum kinetic transfer, its crystalline structure designed to maintain coherence even under the impossible stresses of relativistic velocity. Vextai's casual confidence lasted exactly 3.7 seconds. His ship's advanced sensors finally recognized what was approaching. But by then, the projectile was already crossing the final 1,000 kilometers. The Kithran commander experienced something his species hadn't felt in centuries: genuine surprise. "Defensive systems activate," he broadcast to his fleet. "Unknown projectile incoming at impossible velocity." The Kithran ship's shields activated automatically, energy fields that could deflect antimatter streams and absorb the output of stellar-class weapons. They were designed to counter every known form of attack in the galaxy, capable of adapting to new threats within microseconds, but the shields had been programmed to defend against energy weapons and sophisticated projectiles. They were not designed to stop a simple piece of metal moving at a significant fraction of LIGHTSPA. The tungsten osmium slug struck the alien ship's hull with the kinetic energy of a small moon. The Kithran shields managed to deflect roughly 60% of the impact, but the remaining 40% was more than enough. The alien vessel's perfect hull cracked along its entire length. Atmosphere venting from dozens of breaches as internal systems overloaded from the massive energy transfer. For the first time since their arrival, a Kithran ship showed damage. The remaining 12 vessels immediately broke their formations, their casual hovering replaced by rapid, evasive maneuvers. Energy signatures spiked across the electromagnetic spectrum as alien defensive systems activated at full power. "Commander," Vextai's broadcast carried a tone humanity had never heard from the aliens before: uncertainty. Impossible. His voice transmitted across all frequencies. "Our sensors detected no advanced propulsion systems, no antimatter containment, no quantum field generators. How did a primitive species achieve such kinetic energy levels?" Admiral Chun allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as damage reports flooded in from the alien ship. Dr. Hawkins, I'm reading massive structural damage to the target vessel. Life support systems appear compromised. The beauty of kinetic energy, Hawkins replied, already beginning the Railgun's reload sequence. No exotic technology required. Just basic physics applied with enough force to make the universe pay attention. The wounded Kithran ship began emergency repairs, its hull already beginning to regenerate through what appeared to be programmable matter. But the damage was extensive enough to force the vessel to withdraw to a higher orbit. Conceding the space above Earth for the first time since their arrival, Vextai-S next transmission carried a noticeably different tone. Humans of the third planetary body, you have achieved something unexpected. Our preliminary assessment of your technological capabilities appears to have been ... incomplete. We demand to know the nature of the weapon system you have deployed. President Martinez responded personally. Commander Vextai, you said you wanted to see how wars were fought in the galaxy's distant past. Allow me to introduce you to the ancient human concept of kinetic warfare. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Primitive kinetic acceleration should not be capable of achieving such velocities, Vextai insisted. Your species lacks the technological base for relativistic projectile systems. Admiral. Commander Vextai stood in the regeneration chamber of his flagship, watching medical nanites repair the cellular damage from the kinetic impact. His ship's hull had been restored, but the psychological impact of humanity's surprise attack lingered like a persistent infection. For the first time in his 3-century military career, a primitive species had drawn blood from Kithron forces. Analysis complete, his tactical officer reported. The human projectile achieved velocity through electromagnetic acceleration. The system is massive, requiring significant infrastructure and power generation. Our scans indicate only one installation capable of such output levels. Vextai nodded slowly. The humans had surprised him once, but now he understood their capabilities. One railgun, no matter how powerful, could not threaten his entire fleet. The primitive species had revealed their ultimate weapon and demonstrated its limitations in the same moment. Tactical assessment? He asked. The electromagnetic launcher requires extensive charging time between shots. Our defensive screens can now be configured to deflect kinetic impacts at relativistic velocities. The humans have shown us their maximum capability. We can neutralize it. But even as Vextai began planning his counterattack, something strange was happening in the mountains of Tibet, deep within the Himalayas. Another massive structure was emerging from carefully camouflaged caverns. The Railgun hidden in the Chinese peaks had been humanity's second-best-kept secret. Its construction timeline accelerated through international cooperation that the Kithrans had never suspected. Dr. Kenji Nakamura monitored the weapon's startup sequence from a control room carved into solid granite. Unlike the Colorado installation, the Tibet Railgun had been designed with one specific purpose: eliminating targets in deep space orbit. Its barrel extended for nearly 3 kilometers through the mountain's core, and its targeting systems had been calibrated using data from the first successful shot. Power coupling complete, his engineering team reported. All systems nominal. Target acquisition locked on the Kithran command vessel. 12,000 kilometers away, in the Andes Mountains of Chile, a third railgun was completing its own startup procedures. The facility had been disguised as a geological research station, its true purpose hidden beneath layers of scientific equipment and academic cover stories. Dr. Ana Rodriguez supervised the final checklist, her team coordinating with installations on 3 other continents through quantum encrypted communications. The Kithrans had made a fatal error in their assessment of human psychology. They assumed that any species capable of building one advanced weapon system would openly deploy it, following the logical military doctrine of maximum visible deterrence. They failed to understand that humans specialized in deception, misdirection, and strategic surprise. Admiral Chun watched from the Pentagon as coordinate signals flowed between 5 different mountain installations. Project Thunderstrike had never been about building one railgun, it had been about constructing a global network of kinetic weapons, each hidden from orbital observation and designed to eliminate specific types of targets. All stations report ready status, she announced to the Emergency Council. The Kithrans have spread their formation to avoid concentrated fire from the Colorado installation. They don't realize we can now target all 13 ships simultaneously. President Martinez leaned forward. Admiral, are you certain we can achieve multiple hits before they adapt their defenses? Mr. President, the Kithrans have had 6 hours to analyze our first shot and develop countermeasures. But they've been calculating defensive parameters based on a single weapon system. We're about to introduce them to the concept of coordinated global firepower. On his flagship, Commander Vextai was finalizing preparations for humanity's final lesson in technological superiority. His fleet had repositioned across a wide orbital area, ensuring that the primitive railgun could threaten only one vessel per shot. His ship's defensive systems had been recalibrated to deflect kinetic impacts, and additional vessels were prepared to overwhelm Earth's defenses through concentrated bombardment. Begin final demonstration protocol, he commanded. Target the human installation in the North American mountain range. Show them the futility of their resistance. But as Kithran weapon systems charged for their devastating response, Dr. Hawkins in Colorado was coordinating something unprecedented in human warfare. Her targeting computers were linked through quantum communication arrays to 4 other installations, each calculating firing solutions for different alien vessels. The Kithrans had spread their formation to avoid massed fire from a single source they had inadvertently positioned themselves for a coordinated ambush. Synchronized. Firing sequence initiated, Hawkins announced. All stations report target lock. Firing in 3.1. Execute. 5 tungsten osmium projectiles launched simultaneously from mountain installations across 3 continents. The electromagnetic pulses were synchronized to the nanosecond, each railgun drawing power from dedicated nuclear reactors while targeting. Computers calculated relativistic trajectory corrections. The first slug emerged from the Colorado facility, aimed at the Kithran vessel designated Alpha 1. The second projectile launched from Tibet, targeting the command ship where Vextai was preparing his counterattack. The Chilean installation fired at the largest Kithran vessel in the fleet, while installations hidden in the Siberian wilderness and Australian outback targeted additional ships for 3.7 seconds. Space around Earth filled with invisible death, traveling at 30% of LIGHTSPAD. Commander Vextai's confidence lasted until his sensors registered the first electromagnetic signatures. Then his tactical displays erupted with warnings as 5 separate projectiles approached his fleet from impossible firing angles. His modified defensive systems, calibrated to deflect a single kinetic impact, suddenly faced coordinated fire from multiple directions. Impossible, he transmitted. Our scans detected only one installation capable of such power levels. The first projectile struck Alpha 1 before its crew could even activate defensive systems. The Kithran vessel's hull cracked like an eggshell, internal atmosphere venting into space as critical systems overloaded. The ship's quantum field generators failed catastrophically, creating a brief spatial distortion that made the vessel appear to fold in on itself. The second slug reached Vextai's command ship milliseconds later. His newly calibrated shields managed to deflect 65% of the kinetic energy, but the remaining impact was still sufficient to crack the vessel's regenerative hull and compromise multiple decks. Emergency systems activated as the flagship tumbled out of its orbital position. 3 more Kithran ships suffered similar fates as the remaining projectiles found their targets. The aliens' perfect formation dissolved into chaos as vessels struggled to maintain position while conducting emergency repairs. For the first time since their arrival, the Kithran fleet appeared vulnerable. "This is Admiral Chun," came the transmission to the alien fleet. "Commander Vextai, you wanted to see how wars were fought in the galaxy's distant past. Allow me to introduce you to another ancient human concept: coordinated fire superiority. Vextai struggled to process what had just occurred. His species had controlled galactic space for millennia through technological superiority and strategic coordination. They had never encountered a primitive species capable of such tactical sophistication. "How many installations do you possess?" he demanded. Chun's response carried a tone of grim satisfaction. "Commander, you've spent the last week analyzing our technology and finding it primitive. You cataloged our weapons and dismissed them as artifacts. But you failed to understand the most important aspect of human warfare. We don't just build better weapons. We build them in secret, and we build a lot of them." The truth was even more devastating than the Admiral revealed. Project Thunderstrike encompassed 17 separate installations across 6 continents, each capable of firing high-velocity projectiles at targets throughout Earth's orbital space. The 5 weapons that had just fired were only the beginning. Dr. Nakamura's voice crackled through the global communication network. "All stations, reload sequence initiated. Secondary targets identified and locked. Ready to fire on command." The Kithrin fleet found itself in an impossible tactical situation. They could not maintain their orbital positions without exposing themselves to continued kinetic bombardment. But retreat would mean conceding control of Earth's space to a primitive species, something unthinkable in Kithrin military doctrine. Vextai made the decision that would define the remainder of the conflict. "All vessels implement maximum dispersal pattern. Prepare for immediate departure from this system." "Sir?" his tactical officer questioned. "We are abandoning the integration protocol?" "Look at your damage reports," Vextai replied grimly. "These primitives have inflicted casualties on 5 fleet vessels using technology we didn't even know they possessed. They coordinate their attacks with precision that suggests advanced tactical planning. And according to our scans, they may have additional installations we haven't detected." The Kithrin commander stared at the tactical display showing Earth's blue marble, surrounded by the debris from his damaged ships. "Signal the Council. Inform them that species